bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today I'm sitting with my sister, Blood, my sister Faye Blais, changed her name to Faye Blais a while back. We'll get into that.
You started it.
Yeah, no, I'm in Toronto with obviously going to check out the Washington-Toronto game tonight. Any predictions on that game at all?
I don't know. It's going to be tight.
Yeah.
Who are they playing? I don't even know.
Being an entrepreneur in Toronto with a bar and restaurant and stuff like that, you guys play a lot of the Raptors games and Leafs games and things like that. So you kind of probably have to go for the Leafs, right? Like kind of?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Yeah.
They're
probably serious
gonna,
around here.
Yeah, they're probably going to lose because they're sliding right now a little bit. There's turmoil in Toronto right now, but
I don't know. I don't know. That mustache, that Matthews mustache.
Yeah.
Gets me every time.
Have you heard about them comparing him to like Escobar and stuff? He looks like Escobar, yeah.
I mean,
he actually does.
There is a bit of a resemblance there, not gonna lie.
Totally.
For sure.
Totally.
It's pretty hilarious.
But the reason I wanted to chat with you a little bit is obviously, I mean, I know you quite well, but I mean, as a young girl growing up in Sudbury, played, figure skating to ringette to hockey, and then, played high level hockey, in as far as college or university, but just kind of go through a little bit of like your background and all that and kind of how those steps happened and what happened from there. And then the one thing I really want to get into and kind of dive into is that transition out of hockey and kind of going from just being a hockey player pretty much, or an athlete, I guess, your whole life. And then all of a sudden making that transition and then kind of going a totally different way, not out of the realm because you were always into music and stuff, but then totally pursuing something different. Mm-hmm. But growing up, I mean, obviously I had 2 brothers, myself and Neil, and we were both playing hockey. So for you, I think it was natural to at least put skates on. And you being a little bit stubborn and trying to do pave your own way.
Yeah.
Instead of taking up hockey skates at the beginning, you kind of took up figure skating, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it was also like the time and place, Northern Ontario. In the 90s, it was like girls wear figure skates. It was still like the early days of girls wearing boys skates that they were called back in the day.
Yeah. Not a lot of female locker rooms in the rinks then.
No, and you would still see like girls playing hockey with figure skates. Like it was still like the end of that era where girls were starting to wear boy skates, funny enough. But yeah, I mean and that was mom too, being a skating teacher and having figure skates. And it was just kind of like a natural thing probably at that age. But I mean, I can't remember how old I was when I started playing ringette. Pretty young though, probably 10 or 11 or something like that. And that was super fun, really competitive, great skating and kind of going through the power skating days of, mom teaching and then you guys starting to teach power skating and then me starting to teach power skating and transitioning. I think I was in grade 7 when I switched from, so I would have been like, I don't know, how old is that? 13
like 12,
or something?
13,
12, 13. So yeah, I would have started playing ringette earlier than that, then like 8 or something. Switched to hockey in grade 7, which was, great skater and like no hands, obviously at all. But that was
more of a trait in our family.
yeah, totally. For sure.
Yeah.
Still don't really have the hands I need, but yeah, so I don't know, really fun. I mean, I had the sort of lucky stroke, I guess, as the youngest child to kind of have 2 older brothers and be a little bit further behind you guys, a lot further behind, very young. And watch you both kind of do things, and be able to kind of sit back and watch you pave the way with being, a little more type A and super diligent hockey player and putting everything into that. And then alternatively, having Neil kind of be way more free-flowing and creative and working on the music. And I was kind of able to dabble with both of all the things you'd collected in the house, and sort of follow suit in both of those things. And I think it's a big part of my personality too, just kind of liking to do a lot of different things and sort of gradually finding new passions and new things that excite me. So I think that for me, I've always been an athlete or maybe just a person who likes to go all the way with something as far as competing at a high level, but not ever putting myself completely into it as far as always having other interests that really kind of pull me away here and there. So I think that was the biggest thing that set me back throughout my hockey career, especially as I got older and it got more serious and more kind of at an elite level. It was obviously disappointing in high school, kind of coming to terms with the fact that like a scholarship wasn't in the cards, There were like little offers that were, not good enough for me to go to some random, Northern New York State University, and pay most of my way. It was just not a good play. Yeah. And seeing, good friends of mine get great offers and go on to great careers in hockey. But, at the same time, there were certain goals in my life that I had, like traveling a lot. I always had, from a younger age, I had this goal of, going on exchange in my third year university. That was something I always wanted. So I had certain goals, and of course I was starting to play guitar and write music, and I was into songwriting and that whole thing. So as much as I had a goal of hockey becoming, having a career in hockey, even though it was sort of the early days of where you could go as a female hockey player, there were still certain things I wanted to achieve, but it wasn't like I saw in you where it was a burning desire to be that and put all of my eggs and all of my work and all of my time into that. I just wasn't that person. Like I had a lot, I wanted to play at a really high level. When I got on the ice and suited up, I wanted to be the best player on the ice for sure. But I didn't want to put all the work into that. I wanted to get home and like do a bit of that and then play a bit of guitar and go hang out with my friends. And so, that's the honest truth. And that's the differentiator for sure. Like the girls I know that went all the way, that's what they did when they got home. They shot pucks and they did more off ice training than the rest of us, had in our training program. So you have to go the extra mile. And I see that now for sure.
I think it's one of those things, though, growing up for me, I didn't realize this till I was older, especially when I probably moved away from home, is when then I started to appreciate other people having other things in their lives. Because I know growing up with me at times probably wasn't the easiest as far as just dragging you and Neil out to play road hockey or whatever was going on, But then when I left, you kind of appreciate that a little bit more, that people do have other things. I was definitely like all in on hockey. I wish maybe I had gotten into more things or different things, I don't regret it at all, but that was my passion. That's what I love. That's what I wanted to do. And that, kind of got me to different places and got me to do different things, which was cool. But then I specifically remember one time I came home from playing, it was maybe Christmas or something like that. And you're, 6 years younger than I am, and Neil's a year younger than I am. So my younger brother and sister, I remember coming home and going down to the basement, and Neil had a drum kit, and you guys had guitars, and like, I don't know, you were probably 11, 12, and you're on the drum kit playing drums, and Neil's playing guitar and singing. I'm like, what?
I was forced to be the drummer and forced to be the goalie. that was my life growing up. It's like, Faye, put the pads on. Faye, come play drums for me. I gotta try out this song. Yeah.
So how's therapy going? Is therapy good?
Yeah. No, but it was awesome. And like, vice versa. Like I admire that drive so much. It's amazing. It's incredible. And it's, I think for a lot of people, you're born with it. It's just like the difference of personalities, and it's what makes a game changer in this world, and we have them in every kind of different category of life skills. Some people just go all the way with an idea, and that's what, progresses our generation and the generations to come and the rest of it. So it's awesome and it's great. And sometimes I wish I had, I mean, I do and I don't. Sometimes I wish that I could really, be all in on something. But on the other hand, I really like switching it up all the time. And I like kind of having multiple things that I can do very well, So yeah, I think it's just a personality thing, and you can't, sorry.
There's our guard dogs.
Hey, Cooper, go lay down. Cooper. Oh my God.
That's all right.
Dog sitting.
Let's keep going.
I'll cut that out. Rocky, on your bed. Rocky, on your bed. Go.
Rocky's our guard dog here. Rocky takes care of business. Sick name too, eh? Rocky?
Yeah, it is pretty
Sick.
great.
Yeah.
It is very great.
It is
really
good.
Cute. He looks scary, but he's really sweet. He lays back on my feet. But yeah, so I think that I don't have any regrets that way. And it's funny because I think what frustrated me the most playing in university was, and it was a Canadian university, and I was probably a little bit of a, whatever, teenager. But, what bothered me about my coach was how sort of, one track mind he was about how our lives should be and how we should kind of be breathing this sport and nothing else should come in our path. And for me, I was in my, late teens, early 20s thinking like, this is kind of my youth. And I'm meeting, I had a lot of hockey friends, but I had a lot of friends outside of hockey that were doing all kinds of really cool things that I was interested in. So that was for me, like, stunting my growth in other areas of my life, travel, politics, like all the rest of it. So I kind of saw that as a detriment to his character, that he couldn't see that what he was trying to tell us to do as these young university students was to forget everything else and only focus on this sport, when it was like his job to do that. I see now that, that's what it takes to cultivate greatness and to have these potential players that will go on to change the game. And that's a beautiful thing, and that's a beautiful passion. But at the time, I was a bit of a rebel player. I was a total team player and a leader on the team. But as far as the coach went and the way I felt about the game and elite athletics at that time, it was sort of becoming more and more of a burden in my life at a certain point. And despite loving to play the game at that level and competing well and being a great player, I still sort of saw the end at that point,
Yeah. Do you think though, if you had, because just to backtrack quick, obviously played minor hockey in Sudbury and then went to Guelph, and played university hockey there, obviously highest level in Canada for females, aside from the Olympics and stuff like that at that time.
Yeah.
Great brand of hockey, all that kind of stuff. A lot of good players there.
Yeah.
But, and I know this just because I know you and I know what you went through, but the coach wasn't great and didn't connect well with a lot of the girls on the team. There's a lot of like risks there. But do you think,
for sure,
do you think that maybe your path, because realistically, if you're coaching women's hockey back then in the 90s, I mean, none of them are going to be playing professional hockey. None of them are. So all of them are going to graduate and go on and move on with their lives. So at the end of the day, there's a balance there between hockey, elite athletics, and then obviously life. And
totally.
So had that coach had a different approach or a different way of selling that to you girls, do you think more of the girls would have bought into what he was saying and would have bought into, and maybe made it a more fun experience, more enjoyable experience? Because I know it was tough. Like, from
very
day one,
much so.
Any university athletics, for any young kid out there that was aspiring to play college hockey or whatever it is, right? There's practice every day. There's school on top of practice. There's workouts. It's a lot. It's demanding. And for, guys, girls, doesn't matter who you are, you love your sport, you want to do it. But if you have a coach who's just makes it a drag to go to the rink every day, whether that's Adam or college or NHL, it sucks. Like it turns the sport off, and I think, had you had a different coach, you think that would have changed your experience and probably some of the girls' experience on your team?
100%. Yeah. I saw a few girls get disheartened and move away from the sport after that. You know, I took like a 13-year break up from it. I just got back to it 2 years ago and I'm so happy to be playing again. Yeah. I'm playing on 2 teams this year, it's like, but I can't blame him either. I think a lot of it was me and a lot of it was the mental game, which I think that at the time, whether it was personality wise or just maybe my drive for the game, I didn't want to play the political game of the sport, of sort of the mind games of it. He was kind of playing mind games, and I know that's part of the game. But it was just, we just kind of butted heads, unfortunately.
But I don't think it has to be. Like I think as a coach,
I totally agree. And it's the same with managers in any kind of job. There are good managers and there are bad managers, and there are inspiring leaders and there are leaders who are out for themselves and who want to win at any cost. And they're not really thinking about how they're affecting a young mind and how they're affecting a young athlete. And that's a huge, huge problem. And it was a huge problem for me then because I saw what was happening to some of the players, some of the goalies, and it was like a lot of mind games that just didn't need to be there. And a lot of really, really great, dedicated players who were starting to lose their edge because they were being played, or not played, So it was really disheartening. It soured it for me for sure. But again, I can't sit here now with what I've kind of lived after that and blame it on one person. Like I could have just stuck it out and risen above it and continued on in the sport and done something great to prevent that ever happening later. Go on to coach, go on to do whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it was a combination of just being like, forget this. This is
Yeah.
insane. I'm putting so many hours in. This guy's messing with my head and all of our heads, whoever he wants to at the time, and deciding to play or not play us, silly, crazy mind games that were just like juvenile, in my opinion, and this kind of stuff happens. But, yeah, it was sort of, to me, just kind of like, okay, forget it. There are other things I want to do in my life anyway. This is kind of a good time to walk away and just be done with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the end for me.
When you look back on that,
third year,
on those 2 years, because you played 2 years obviously, and then did an exchange, and that kind of that was kind of the probably the straw that, or that was an easier out.
It was.
To get out,
it was
right?
like, you know what? I always wanted to do this thing. So see you later. You know what I mean? I thought it was like making this statement, and kind of I had applied halfway through my second year. So I'd sort of decided, I had a really bad injury in my second year, which was kind of an interesting thing to go through because I'd never really dealt with an injury in my life before, which kind of kept me out of a couple months of the season, which really sucked.
Yeah.
And that was sort of where the mind games really came into, like trying to come back early, which was my fault, and sort of, coming back and being hesitating in the corners and things like that, that can happen after an injury. So it was hard to come back after that injury, but I eventually did. And, but yeah, it was kind of like, all right, halfway through going through that experience, it was super, super, super stressful time. I had like a lot of anxiety, I remember, and I'm not, I had to that point never been a quote unquote anxious person, ever. And I remember I was having breathing issues. And as a kid, I had asthma, which kind of went away as I grew up. So I thought it was asthma coming back, and we had a team doctor, and she referred me to a couple specialists, and I had all these tests and MRIs and all kinds of stuff, and they kept all telling me it was anxiety, and I was like, it's not anxiety, like I'm fine, I feel fine, it's not that, like something is wrong with me, And finally, I remember one doctor sitting me down and being like, you need to like wake up, this is what it is. You need to, whatever is really stressing you out, you need to be really aware of it. And it was the first time that I sort of really took a hard look at like what was really going on in my life and how it was affecting me physically. And I had to sort of really make a decision at that point, like, okay, this is not necessary. It's not necessary for me at 21 years old or 20 years old, to be this stressed out over a hockey game that I knew I wasn't going to go to the WNHL with that career, I wasn't a star in the, in that league or anything like that. I was a good player. I was playing, very well, but it was kind of a like, do I want to continue to dedicate every hour? God, these dogs. Rocky, hey, get over here. Cooper, on your bed. Go. Let's go. Come. It was kind of like, do I want to dedicate this many hours of my life to this sport that's like starting to really seriously affect my my days and my experience in university? And like, I only get one shot at having a university, or, this is an important time in my life. And I was really excited and had been looking forward to that period of my life for a long time, exploration and growing as a person and traveling and all of these things. And I felt like this was really starting to get in the way of a lot of things that I wanted to explore in my life. And I was, I was just kind of like that point, that breaking point where I was like, okay, I think this is got to stop.
Yeah. Now, do you think those 2 years of school kind of souring hockey and all that kind of stuff, do you think that when you look back on that now, did it strengthen you a lot as far as who you are today, and even the next couple of years after that, as far as dealing with adversity, dealing with crappy bosses, dealing with weird people that have hidden agendas, or, you know what I mean? Did you find that experience that you went through at school and hockey and all this stuff that obviously changed a little bit of who you were and how you kind of approach things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at that time, that was a huge decision to make. I had spent, over a decade training to be a hockey player, put a ton of hours into playing tournaments all over the place, all over the country, and worked really, really, really hard to be great at this sport, and thought that, I could potentially go pretty far into it, and and also, you were really playing at a competitive level, and we had a real hockey family, and I had a big like hockey world in my world. So to all of a sudden cold turkey quit the sport halfway through my university experience was a big thing at that point from who I was at that point to tell everybody that I was more anxious to tell everybody I had quit hockey than to just quit hockey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So there was a lot of pressure there for me. And I remember talking to you a lot about it and, talking to mom a lot about it and just trying to figure out whether this was a big mistake and whether I should just toughen up and just keep going and not let this coach get me down, or whether, I should pursue other things that I was really into and interested in. And so it was a pivotal moment in my life. It changed the course of my life for the following decade. It was the end of a chapter, and it was like a grieving period for sure of like, who am I then if I don't put, 40 hours, 50 hours a week into this one thing. Like I remember literally putting a hammock up in my backyard at Guelph the following semester because I had so much time on my hands.
Yeah.
Like I like read books for fun on top of going to school because I was just like, and that's the one thing that I will never regret about hockey is how much structure it brought into me and work ethic, and that hasn't gone anywhere, leadership, group kind of, being with a group and so many things, training.
This is where, to me,
working hard.
Yeah. And I think like you said something that I think is really important. I think playing a sport, could be gymnastics, volleyball, whatever it is, hockey, there's going to add structure to your life, especially as young kids. And I think that's important.
For sure.
It also takes away time. So time to get in trouble or time to explore other things, which could be a positive or negative. But at the same time, you learn a bit of time management, you're meeting new friends, all that kind of stuff. There's obviously a lot of benefits, which we all know for playing sport. But the one thing I found is when I stopped playing college and went and played pro, how much time I had on my hands. I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. And now when I talk to young kids that are just going to university, not playing any sports, just going to university, I'm like, I'm so busy. Like it's crazy. Yeah. And I think back, same with you, like I had a part-time job. I played on the hockey team. I went to school. Yeah. Like we had no hours in the day that were free, mm-hmm. So you really cherish those hours when you get them back, when mm-hmm. whatever happens, you stop playing, the summers, whatever it is. And I think it's important for kids to have that structure and learn that structure a little bit, mm-hmm. just to appreciate when you do have that free time and you're able to do other things, or you're able to read a book or do, mm-hmm. Stuff like that, which I think is huge. Right. But absolutely. I get super irritated when people are, I'm so busy. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I'm not saying, I was super busy. I was so busy, but just, man, like there's something to be said about people that are able to fit a lot in their day and are structured with it and are able to kind of move forward and be successful with it, which I think is huge.
Yeah, definitely.
Now going forward, so you end up quitting playing. What was the feedback mm-hmm. like from friends and family and stuff? Was it different than what you thought?
Definitely.
Because I think a lot of kids go through this where they're worried about quitting an atom or peewee or midget, and if you're from a hockey family or a small town where everyone plays hockey or volleyball, whatever that sport is, it's hard to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And then when you actually do it, I think the outcome or the feedback sometimes is different than what you thought it was going to be, right?
Yeah. And as an adult now, it's like, yeah, of course I would say that to my child or my niece or nephew, which was like, if you should do what makes you happy, this is what makes you happy, then do it. Like there will be many other things in your life that you will love and that you will leave, and that's just life. And this is the end of a chapter, and if that's what you want, so that it really a lot of people just kind of left it up to me, but we're there to kind of cheerlead me in whichever direction I was going to take. So and I think that there was like a showing there of my creative life kind of blooming at that time. So a lot of my family and friends were seeing me sort of aspire to play music and do more of that, and I was sort of growing as a musician there too. So I remember my friends outside of hockey.
They would have been pumped.
They were kept at, you know what I mean? Like a lot of them were like, enough already. Like, so, that, but that said, it's such a different world, the hockey world. So I knew that they didn't have the perspective that an athlete has, but I had a lot of really good friends on my team that I really, confided in. About all of that and who had some really good advice for me. And it was a really tough decision. It took me a long time to make. And I'm glad I made it. I wish I hadn't left the sport for that long, but I mean, I was traveling and I was living my life and it is what it is. But I'm grateful for everything that happened, for sure, because it all kind of shaped me into who I am. And it was character building massively, leaving such a big part of your life behind, or making that kind of a huge change, career change, life change, whatever, is daunting and scary, but important to do if you're not feeling right,
Yeah.
So.
And one thing, you were older when you made that decision. And the nice thing, I think, with your situation, we'll get into this now, is you had music and other things that you were falling back on that you really enjoyed. And because one fear, I think, with a lot of parents when their kids come to them in 13 and say, I don't want to play hockey anymore. I don't want to do gymnastics anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now what are we going to do with that 20 hours a week?
Yeah,
We've been
totally.
busy. So now you're going to get into video games or hanging with your buddies that are bad guys or girls, or, so I think as a parent, you fear that a little bit. Okay, I got to keep my kids busy because I want to keep them out of trouble. I want to keep them on the right path. But now if your son or daughter has something else in the trenches that, I'm going to take out of those 20 hours I've been doing hockey a week as a young kid, 10 of them are going to be me learning how to skateboard, or I love skateboarding, or something that's, makes sense. Right. And for you, obviously you were able to fill that void pretty quickly and pretty easily with music and, playing music. And, I think at that time you were already kind of playing gigs a little bit and starting to get into that whole singing and songwriting and trying to get out there a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I was doing it because friends were kind of egging me on to, get up there at like open mics and stuff. I didn't have anything released or wasn't playing any gigs yet at the time. That happened in my third year, I went on exchange in my second semester. First semester, I was just like, woohoo, I'm free. And just had a lot of fun and enjoyed that semester very much, really connected with a lot of friends and spent a lot of time with people. And then, in my third semester, went away to France. And then in my fourth semester, I recorded the album. So that was like a lot of time as well.
Yeah.
I recorded that album over an entire semester, I think, of driving to Hamilton after class. So it was funny because I remember thinking, this is taking as much time as hockey used to take. All of a sudden I don't have any time again. But yeah, like it's, How
cool is it to finally have your own record out? And this is kind of where the name change came, because being from Northern Ontario, obviously we're bilingual in French. Everyone said Blais. Like if you asked anybody in Sudbury, English, French, Italian, it'd be Blais. That's just what it was. And then you move south and no one can say Blais anymore and it becomes Blaze. And then finally you're fed up with it. You're like, it's Blaze. Like you're tired of correcting people. I went through it. You went through it. Neil went through it. And then, as far as a coolness to it and an easier way to say it and changing it, not changing it, but just pronunciating it, Faye Blais kind of made sense. But your first record came out, and how cool was that to get that done and kind of have your name and picture and all this kind of stuff and all that hard work into this, into kind of a final project?
Yeah, I mean, that was massive. It made it all worthwhile for sure. I remember feeling like I had made the right choice, and it was it was a huge life goal since I was a kid. Since I was a little kid, that was one of my goals as a young aspiring child, watching singers and I remember, my wishes were always to be a singer, that kind of stuff. So it was huge for me, for sure. Yeah, it was massive. And I think maybe at the back of my mind, certainly in university, like I kind of already touched on, but that was one reason I didn't want to let go of my other interests while playing hockey. I knew that there were other like burning desires for me to do in my life, and I didn't want to have like this big block of time that I didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
So I think that that's one thing that it's sort of a tricky one, because it is really important for a young kid and a blooming sort of teenager and young adult to put everything into this one thing, but it's also important to be a well-rounded individual so that you can make sound decisions. And so you have a little bit more of you have a wider perspective on life and a bit of an understanding on the way things work outside of the bubble you're in, and that goes for anything that you're into, but on the other hand, like I said earlier, what it takes to really be that next level game changer is like putting every single minute into something. So, it's tricky. And again, hey,
Rocky. Best guard dog ever, though.
Yeah.
If there's like a pin drop anywhere in this building, he's on it.
Hey. Rocky. Quiet. But yeah, what else were we saying?
I'm just gonna like talk about dog collars and like shock collars. I want to get one for my dog actually.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, going off kind of what you're saying though, the one thing too, when you look at like that album and getting that stuff out, and you know, you talk about being a bit type A at times on certain things, but that took a lot of time and work and effort and focus to be able to like, first of all, write the songs, the lyrics, all that stuff, and then put it down on a CD and get all that stuff put together and done. For anybody out there who loves music and maybe one day, now things have changed obviously a bunch, but you actually had like a hard CD, which nowadays it'd be a little bit different. But let's say back then we got probably early 2000s probably.
Yeah, 2005.
So how much would that cost for like roughly, do you remember roughly what it cost you like
Oh my God.
to do something like that? Not counting your time obviously, but just producing an actual
what it cost me
CD.
to have that done at the time, probably at least 3,000 or 4,000, which at the time I was just like working as much as I could. And I was paying him as I would leave the studio, I was paying him cash every time.
Just little installments here and there. Yeah.
Like just, you know.
But what I'm getting at is like, you know, people think of making a CD now, you're not mass producing millions of copies, but you know, you got enough that you can sell on the road and kind of start your tour and all this kind of stuff. But it's not a ton to invest if you have like, you know, and nowadays
well,
probably,
that was my first album though, as like a super indie student. But
even
it was
nowadays
a lot
probably
more
be
for later ones.
cheaper, like to do it like with all the technology and stuff like that. You could probably record a lot of it at home with $1,000 of gear. You know what I mean? Just like what I'm getting at is if you're a young kid who has passion about this stuff, no matter what it is on this kind of like music or podcasting or whatever it is, like you can do this stuff on the cheap and kind of follow that passion and see how you like it, see how it goes.
Absolutely.
Just for you, I mean, when you first started, I'm sure playing gigs and playing shows and stuff like that was, you know, you look back on your first 5-10 shows, how much different of a performer were you 150 shows later?
Oh my gosh.
Night and day.
Yeah.
You know, and I watched a lot of your shows, obviously, you know, growing up and, you know, coming in to watch and stuff. But yeah, it was night and day when I watched you 2 years later or 3 years later, you know.
Yeah.
Now, how long total did you tour and travel and play and kind of do the whole music thing? Because you went
I mean, like I released my first record, I guess, in 2005.
Triple
but, you know,
platinum.
still, yeah. Don't Google it. And then basically recorded my last sort of EP, which was like the side project in 2015, I think it was. So that was 10 solid years of like pursuing music full time, touring full time, probably 6 years straight.
But I mean, everywhere from like Australia, New Zealand, Europe, all across Canada, a little bit in the US, like it's overall. And I mean, we always talked about it. And you know, the only thing I ever played was a hockey stick and piano when I was young. But so when I'm thinking about stuff like this, no matter what it is, you always try to relate it to what you know or what you know, what resonates with you. So for me, like you doing what you did is like grinding it out in the East Coast League or, you know, in the minor pros, trying to get to that NHL, trying to get a bit of a break or one of the songs to get on the radio or whatever. Right. But and at the end of the day, like for me, for instance, I played in the East Coast League, but I loved every minute of it. I loved where I lived. I loved the places I traveled to. There were some dark times and good times, but overall, look back on those experiences, like, man, that was unbelievable. And I learned so much just away from like school and books and things like that, you know? But for you coming out of university and having a degree, could have easily probably gotten the workforce and started a job. And right now you'd hate life and whatever, you know? But like making that decision of being like, you know what, I've got a degree and I'm not gonna use my degree right now. I'm gonna shelf it and I'm gonna go pursue this and go have fun. Was that a tough decision to make, you know, at that time when a lot of your friends, I'm sure, are going there? I have a real hard time with the whole path, and our family's not really like that, where you go to high school, you go to university or college, and you get a job, you get a mortgage. Like we've never really been like that. So I think for our family, it's like, go fill your boots, have fun, enjoy it. You know, there's no money here for you anyway, so just keep going, do it. Do what you want. No, I'm kidding.
Life sucks.
We were always like, you know, pretty independent. And, you know, I think our parents did a good job of just like letting us kind of pursue things and try things out. And
absolutely.
But was that a tough decision to make, or was that something like you knew right away? Like
that was like another dream, you know, like finish university, travel. So I went to Taiwan and did like a year out there, which is where I recorded my second album, kind of fell into this cool, like musical expat scene there. And it was sort of, that was always like, you know, a little like, a definitive time period that then I was going to come home and then life was going to sort of start. So, you know, the tricky like kind of curveball came like halfway through my time in Taiwan, which ended up being a year and a half, where I sort of decided like, okay, I'm going to go to Australia and live there and record the rest of this second album, and tour and call myself a musician, Yeah. And I remember the day that I said, okay, as of today, when people ask me what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell them I'm a musician. And I was like scared, I was like, oh God, like I felt like such a poser. And I was like, this is like, it was like a real, like, but here we go. Like I'm doing this, and I was super scared. I had, put everything into the album, literally, like I had no money left. And there I was going to Australia, had plane tickets booked. So yeah, I was terrified that it wasn't going to work. I didn't know what I was doing at all looking back. You know what I mean? But I was excited, super excited. I think I was 22 at the time, maybe. Couldn't wait to travel, couldn't wait to meet new people, couldn't wait to just play music all day and play gigs, and super, super fun period of my life, definitely, met a crazy amount of people, and just had a total blast living in Australia and touring Australia for that like year and a half. And then I came home after that, and in my last gig in Australia, I had said, and it was like a big goodbye gig kind of thing. And I had said, I'll be back in 2000. And that was, I think, 2010. I said, I'll be back in 2011. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh no, what did I just say? And like, obviously nobody really cared. Like Australia wasn't going to fall apart if I didn't come back in 2011. But it was one of those things where I was like, I said it, I got to do it. Like I can't not do it. I said I was going to do it. And so that began this circuit of perpetual summers and touring kind of the world every year after year for, did that for 6 years.
Yeah. It's unreal,
back and forth. Yeah. It was amazing. I just loved it. And I probably was ready to call it at like 4. And I remember you being like, just, you were a huge, you really helped me guide me through that process where you kind of said what we were just saying, which is like, once you call it, like real life sort of starts. And not that I was running a business, and I really stood by that. I was working really, really hard at organizing the logistics of staying afloat on a music career, and it was hard work, and all the while still trying to be a creative person, being the business person, running the business, and being the creative person, because I wasn't in the, in the pool of having a label to like help me do everything. I was super indie about it all. So, but that said, like I didn't have to be anywhere apart from the next gig. I didn't have to wake up. I didn't have to set an alarm, that kind of stuff. So I did have a crazy amount of like freedom and the ability to kind of go where the wind took me and decide like, hey, I'd like to go to New Zealand this summer. I think I might just book a little quick tour there, so that was pretty amazing. And I really do miss that right now, but that said, there came a time where it was like, okay, I think I want to be in one place now,
No, for sure. And I think one thing that you said there that resonates heavily with me is I had no idea what I was doing. Like your first tour, booking dates, like all that's new. But you fast forward 8 years later, and how much better were you at booking tours and efficiency and all this stuff, and running your own business as your own brand and marketing and all that stuff, social media. And, and I did the same thing with the hockey business. I had no idea what I was doing business wise. I took exercise physiology. I was going to be in the gym with guys, and all of a sudden I'm filing HSTs and like talking to an accountant about stuff. No idea. Yeah. But you learn as you go. And if you like it and you enjoy it, then you just, it's not really work. It's fun and you're learning. It's frustrating at times, but you're learning and you're growing. And then you get a chance to look back and you're like, how I guess, putting money aside, how important was that education over those 10 years of just meeting people and socializing and traveling and seeing new places. Like all that educational piece to me is there's no amount of money that you could pay me to not do that. Like you got to do that kind of stuff. And if you have a chance to do it, like absolutely the amount that you learn, and it's just unbelievable. Right. So now that kind of sets you up for the next kind of chapter that you're in now and kind of settle down. And one other thing too, though, I got to talk about this because there's a lot of young guys that come back from playing college or university and ask me, hey, should I go? Like I got a chance to go play pro. It's kind of a crappy league in Europe or it's a crappy league in North America. But I'm like, yeah, You got to go. Like you make $200 a week. Who cares? Go play and go enjoy it for a year or two because like you said, it ends. Like when it ends, what are you going to do? Get a job at a bank and pay a mortgage? Like that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can do that at 30 or 40. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? So your mortgage is paid off at 60 instead of 70. Who cares? Like really down the road, go enjoy it. Go have life experiences. Go, you know, follow your passion for a little bit and have fun with it.
And one thing too, that I sort of felt, you know, and I don't know if everybody feels this, but it's certainly one thing that, you know, working so hard as an athlete, I think definitely set me up for, which is just like, you know, grinding it out and working as hard as you can and just filling your schedule with hard work and sort of having faith in yourself that you're going to make it happen all the time. You know, I remember thinking, oh God, you know, I've got friends that are having kids and I've got friends that are buying houses and I'm reaching 30 and I still don't have a house, you know, at the time. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And it was really when I hit 30 where I was like, you know, there are all these other goals that I have, these burning desires, like owning a home and, you know, having a cool apartment that's, you know, my place and all of this kind of stuff that was starting to kind of get up there in the ranks and become a bit more of a priority for me. So I think knowing that and like having great people like you kind of tell me like, you know, it's going to be all right. You know, 2 more years isn't going to ruin your life. Keep doing it if you love doing it. You know, you'll get all those things done when you're ready and it'll all happen. Money comes and goes, you know? And so it was kind of that thing where I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not like everybody else. I'm not like, you know, 80% of people. I can work way harder. I know that I can work harder than most people and I'll make it happen if I need to make it happen. You know, there's sort of this faith in yourself that you know how hard you can work if you have to. And that I think I really experienced with hockey. It was like, you know, you think you're done with the drills and then you've still got 20 minutes of drills left, you know? Yeah. So there's always a little more in the tank kind of thing. And and so finishing that up and being like, oh God, here we go. I'm at another crossroads was like, all right, let's do this. Yeah. You know,
I also think there's something to be said about not having anything. So spending all your money on a CD, not having a lot of money, or even just traveling and playing in the minors, you know, you don't have a lot of money. Yeah. And I think when I went through it living off a line of credit when I first started this business years ago and like no money, I'm never scared to not have money again. Or I'm never scared to like, I'll go clean gutters to make money. I'll do whatever. I'm not worried about that. Kind of your point. Like I'll work hard to be able to make sure my family's fine, you know? And I think for a lot of young kids out there and parents is setting your kids up for success, no matter what it is, rather than paving the road for them, have them help you lay bricks, have them help you do this stuff to like set that foundation in place where, you know, they know what it's like to fail. They know how to get out of a failure. They know how to, you know, talk to people and get help and do things in order to succeed. And
totally,
you know, that's kind of the recipe.
Failure is important.
Right? Yeah.
Like disaster, you know, from disaster comes opportunity. That's a thing that I say to myself a lot when I feel like things are just like all kind of going to shit, you know, for lack of a better word. You're like, come on, you know? Yeah. And so, you know what, there's a lesson in this. There's a reason that this is all happening. I got to figure out how to get through it. And then I'm going to be a better person because now I know how to get through that one thing, you know, and that's one more thing I know how to get through in life. Yeah. And I think that's a huge lesson there, you know? And the other thing I wanted to mention too, on that note is sort of like, not only is it good to let your kids fail, but, you know, syncing up, you know, something like going to play hockey in Europe is kind of like, you know, it's an opportunity, you know, to still be doing what you love and then get all those peripheral life skills and life kind of, you know, get some touch time with really interesting people and interesting cultures and sort of open your mind while still kind of driving towards your one main goal, if that's what kind of person you are, you know. And I think that was huge for you, you know, having all these cool cultural experiences and meeting all kinds of people and getting to play with all kinds of people. And that's, you know, that's something I did with touring, which was like, you know, I want to go experience this culture. Well, I'm just going to book a tour and go there, you know. And you can't always be so choosy in your career, but if and when you can, you know, I think it's good to think outside the box and do things that, you know, get you ahead in your career, but also you as a person. You know, I think being able to separate yourself from your identity as the athlete or as the musician or as whatever you're doing and be able to have sort of a home person there that you can always rely on is super important. You know, that's something that I struggled with hockey. You know, how do I tell everybody I'm not a hockey player anymore? If I'm not a hockey player, who am I? You know, and then again, I dealt with it with music, you know, in a way bigger way, because I was, you know, an older kind of, you know, 30 something, having a massive career change where I'd had sort of a bit more of a public life. And it was like, now what do I tell people, you know? That was a huge like breakup with my, you know, kind of ego at that time, which was like, it doesn't matter if I'm not doing this thing, you know, nobody really cares either. You know, everybody's got their own life going on and it's cool that I'm doing something else and I'm just going to do that. But it took me a good year there to sort of figure out who I was without having that identity attached to my name, you know?
Yeah.
So
now if somebody sees
lesson.
you, like you used to tell them you're a hockey player and then you used to tell them that you're a musician. Now what do you tell them?
Nothing.
Retired.
No, you know, it's funny because when I was saying to Vic earlier today, I was like, I'm doing the podcast with Dwayne, and I was like, it's weird. You know, I used to do these interviews all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't done like a public interview of any kind in probably 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm like nervous, you know, I'm like, it's so nice just like being in the shadows and not like having to do this. It's kind of funny, but yeah. So it's sort of that thing where I don't have anything to prove at all.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing now that I feel like I have to tell people I'm doing in the first 10 minutes of a sentence kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we'll get there. If we get there, if you're a cool person that I feel interested to go deep with, then, you know, we'll see that through. And that's maybe just part of growing up or my kind of experience in life. But, there was a lot of sort of ego tied to that particular
I think it's normal
bubble too.
Yeah,
you know, that career was very much surrounded.
I mean, hockey players go through the same thing when they stop playing in the NHL or pro. They have a real hard time sometimes not getting asked for autographs, not talking to people after a game or after a show. Like, so I think there is a lot of ego tied to it. There's a lot of, you know, and if you don't have something fun to fall back on or something else going on and you have a lot of time on your hands, that's when stuff gets a little dark and nasty. And
and that's why it's so important, I think, to really try to kind of stick those things in there throughout your life, you know? Try to avoid being totally one-track mind, because those skills come in handy, you know, those social skills, those cultural skills, those language skills, those, you know, whatever, you know, doing a bit of like, you know, woodworking on the side or drawing or like whatever, that kind of thing might save you at some other point in your life and become a connector to the next phase or whatever, you know? So I think you know, you don't want to be like a jack of all trades and master of none necessarily, but I think it is nice to know that you're good at many things in life, you know?
No, for sure. And so now kind of the chapter you're in now, I guess, you know, now if someone did come up to you on the street and you're talking and work came up, you know, what do you do for a living now?
I own a restaurant.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, done.
Own a restaurant in Toronto.
But that was like one of those other crossroads that you came up to that kind of were done touring and kind of wanted to settle and be maybe a little bit closer to family, move back to Canada full time. And, I remember having the conversation with you about maybe going back to school and weren't sure exactly what you're going to do or get a job. And then this whole bar restaurant came up with some friends that were looking at investing in something. And I remember having that conversation with you and you're like, I don't know what I should do. It's going to be like, you know, X amount of dollars. And it wasn't crazy. I want to say it was like 20,000 or something like that you guys were going to put in at the beginning. The number doesn't matter, but when we were talking about it, I was like, well, what would you pay for that education of learning business? And, you know, you kind of came up with a number what school would cost for a year or two. I was like, well, you're going to get that and you're going to own something. And you're going to learn so much just on the business side of running a business. I don't know nothing about restaurants, but I know a little bit about business, and no matter what it is, if it's an ice cream shop or a musician, or you're going to learn stuff about business and all, you know, so I think, you know, for you is obviously a nice transition and you've done a ton of really cool stuff. And when you first did it, I remember we were joking like, Kate Faye, you're going to open a bar restaurant in Toronto. So you're going to be about 2 years and then probably shut her down. Because there's bars and restaurants flipping all the time here. It's really hard to stick around in a big city like this, right?
Definitely.
But you guys are going on how many years now? And how's it been going?
4.5.
It's crazy.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's just better and better.
And how much have you learned since like day one?
Oh my gosh.
Opening that door.
Yeah, just
restaurant.
nuts. Just nuts. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, and it really is like a melding of a lot of things I've done in my life, for sure. You know, everything's kind of coming together with this one big project, you know, and it really feels like a huge creative project. It's still a project that is being molded into where it's supposed to go, you know, which is the best part of it. It's sort of a job that's never done, and there's so much work to do still on it. And there's so much that will like spawn from it, you know, and come out of it. But yeah, it's I love it. It's really great. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun and a lot of creativity, for sure.
And I mean, we've mentioned you being artistic and stuff many, many times, but if you ever, if anyone is listening ever goes or is in Toronto, and the area that you guys are in, again, just so I don't mess it up, is like, what would be
like Bloor and Dufferin.
Bloor and Dufferin. So the name of the bar, or name of the restaurant's Winona Lodge. So Winona was an old lodge up in Muskoka area, I believe, right? And kind of that's where the name came from. So Winona Lodge. But if you go in there, there's a ton of artistic stuff that you've done, from paintings to woodworking, tables and bars and stuff on the walls, and not just you and obviously friends helping out, but a lot of it has been like touched and handcrafted by, you know, and why was that done? Just probably to save money. And right. And you enjoy doing it, obviously.
Yeah, it was a like the old kind of cabin cottage northern theme was really one that we could get super crafty with. Definitely. Yeah, it's awesome.
But again, going through that, like hard work just to get stuff done, and working long hours and painting and doing all this stuff just to like save money, obviously, because it's not easy or inexpensive to start your own business. And then, you know, but also it's cool now that it's done and you're just running, and you're like, man, that's pretty neat that I did that, or I created this, or, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. Last night, my business partner and I we were there late, getting the piano ready to get tuned. And so we had to do a couple of things. We were there till, 2 a.m, and he pulled out his phone and we started looking at pictures of Winona when we first bought it.
That's cool.
And it was like, whoa, that's right. You know, that was there and this was there. And like, it's always in transition, and we're constantly improving the space. And, we didn't get into it with a huge kind of angel investor or a ton of money behind us. So we really just kind of we opened those doors 2 weeks after getting the keys, kind of thing, and just hit the ground running. So we've been working on it ever since, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I think there's sort of a running theme in my life, which is just kind of try to make my life as enjoyable as I can and try to shape it, that I don't have to do what everybody else does, and I don't have to take the path that most people take, that I can really kind of engineer a life that works for me and that continues to slip in these things that I really enjoy, like creativity, some artistic side, and the hours that I like, I mean, that's not always going to be the case, but as long as I can make that happen for myself, I think that's where I would like to go, and surrounding myself with really, really good people, creating my environment is something that I've always sort of strived to do and made a priority, get rid of the things that are really, I try to imagine my life as a room, like a garden room, a room with plants and like greenery in it. And is it alive? Is it well? Is it super green? Is there something in that room that is like starting to kill everything around it? And if that's the case, then that's got to go, And so like always kind of taking stock of how things are going and what's good and what's not good, and being a lot better as I get older with kind of cutting out the fat here and there, and always working towards just being a better person. And a lot of that has to do with me, a lot of that has to do with me making better choices and having better habits, whether it's fitness or, mindfulness, or how to be a better manager or how to manage a certain individual, So there's always challenges that come up, and there will be for the rest of my life, and the fun of it is sort of continuing to keep that like ecosystem going in a way that it's working and the business is working and I'm happy and the people that work for me love their jobs. And so, and always being better than most people, like, not that I guess that's my competitive nature, but it's like, I just never want to be down here and doing what everybody else is doing. It's like, how can we amp it up and make it way better? You know what I mean? I don't think that our restaurant is way better than all the restaurants in Toronto by any means, but I do know that we have a staff that's stoked, and wants to keep working there and feel happy and healthy about their bar job and restaurant job, which is, more than a lot of people can say in this industry. And so there's certain things that I take a lot of pride in and continue to want to be better at as a person, and there's a lot of times that I feel like a coach and a leader, and a lot of what has gotten me here today is that foundation of hard work and leadership and working as a team. It's massive, massive. So I it's something I think every kid should go through, and not every kid's going to grab it and love it. And I think there's a lot of place for kids who want to go and read a book. It's super important too. And there are all kinds in this world, but it's good to give them the opportunity to have that experience, because understanding how to work as a team is just so much more helpful later in life when you have a group of people that you need to work with to get something done, and you understand how to get the best out of each person in that group. It's just a massive, massive skill. And a lot of times you learn that when you're on a team, or when you're coaching a team or teaching, and we've both taught, skating and everything else for many, many years. So it's sort of in our blood, and we got trained to do that fairly young in our lives. But, it's definitely something I think about often.
Yeah. I think it's important too, like, when you have strong leaders like yourself or, your partner feels great too, like, but the people that are around you want to be there.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people, like, I love going to work. I like the guys I work with. I like the girls I work with. I enjoy it. We have fun. We laugh. We do our own thing. Everyone works hard, but it's a fun group. And I think that's important. Anybody who has grown up on teams, now, not to say an individual athlete can't have that either with a good group of friends or a good group of family or whatever, right? It's doable in a lot of different ways, but I think it's really, really important to be a good teammate, a good part of a team, whether it's work, family, or sport team, doesn't really matter,
For sure.
And one thing you said too that I think is really, really important is, and this is something that I've heard a lot over the last little bit for some reason, and it's cliche, but like, you do you. It's super, super simple, super easy. But when you really think about it, like, just be you, just be who you want to be. Don't worry about the guys next door or the girls next door or what they're doing or what they bought, or
for sure.
Somebody pulls in with a new car, like, great, nice car, man. That's
For
awesome.
sure.
I don't really want to drive a BMW, but I'm glad you got one. That's great. I'm not jealous. I don't really care, but we all know people that are jealous. Like, how did that guy afford that?
Yeah.
How did that girl, how is she able to do that? Like, who cares? Like, who cares? Maybe she took on massive debt to get that car. Who cares?
Yeah.
But I think it's important to just be happy with what you're doing and who you're with and the life you're living. And if you're not happy, then make changes and try to, start small, do little things, but try to move things around, like you said, to make that a better space and a better spot,
Yeah. Just having faith that your path is your path and you can shape it. With enough hard work and grinding it out and having good mentors, having good people that you can call on for some advice, when you're not quite sure or you need a little help making a decision, just having that faith and that confidence that you can make it happen. If you want to do something really cool, you can just do it. And it's going to be really, really hard. It's going to be super, super difficult. There are going to be a tremendous amount of challenges, but that's kind of the fun of it, and being able to look back and be like, cool, wow. On the other side of it now is it only makes you a better person, only makes you more, well-rounded and kind of, understanding of life and what it can throw at you, sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. I really appreciate the time. Last thing I'd ask, where are the top 3 places that you've been? So if I'm going to start traveling, like, leave my family at home and I'll just go on my own, but where are the top three spots that you've been?
Oh man, that's really tough.
Could be countries, cities, whatever, but spots that.
Okay. Canada's really, really beautiful. The West Coast is like, got my heart for sure. I just love it there. Yeah. Northern BC is so beautiful and the islands are awesome. So that whole kind of just blanket, that whole part of Vancouver's a cool city too, but really heading north up into the mountains and like into some interior BC, Kootenays, just very cool little mountain towns and just like fresh air and active people. It's just awesome. Bali is incredible in Indonesia. Some of the most like colorful tropical landscapes I've ever seen and just like the best beaches, cool surfing, the scent of just like offerings that they offer. They have these little like rice offerings that everybody puts at the end of their driveways for like their kind of ancestors. Like every meal, every time they eat, they put a little bit of rice with an incense ball in it, and that's like a meal offering to their ancestors. And it just there's this beautiful aroma. It's just like super cool cultural experience. Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I can't not talk about Australia. Melbourne as a city is just such a wicked city. Super cultural, super vibrant, like unbelievable restaurants and cafes and, bars and live music and everything. So yeah, an awesome city to live in for sure.
Like a little asterisk, how cool is New Zealand?
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, oh my God. New Zealand's like one of the coolest countries I've ever been to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and not to just like compare it, but I always felt like it was like Canada just squished into a tiny island, every time. The thing about New Zealand is every time you turn a corner in the car, you go around a mountain and you're like, oh, there's just going to be more mountains around this mountain. And then it just like, it opens up into like fields, with sheep all over them, and it's just like, what? Like every 5 to 10 minutes, you're just seeing something
blowing your
completely
mind.
different.
Yeah.
That's just blowing your mind. Yeah. And the people are just some of the nicest people I've ever met in my travels in my life, for sure. It's kind of like East Coast Canada, It's like, oh, you need to go there? Here, I'll just follow me. I'll just drive the hour and a half there because explaining it is harder than me driving an hour to show you. It's just like, wow. Yeah. Really, really cool
That's
culture.
cool.
Yeah. I could spend a lot of time there for sure.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. Best of luck with Winona. And we'll say just on our exits, we'll say bye to Cooper and bye to Rocky. Thanks for joining us today. That was good. That was great.
You can see how lazy they're being right now.
Yeah, I know. All right. Thanks a lot, Faye.
All right. Thank you.